So guys, Wednesday is indeed here, which means the new summit is now live in Motorfest, and with that we'll get ourselves the old vibe tire, and I would say that's a pretty cool tire, or retired, anyone. But anyway though, we will also have the Rayman after that, guys, and to be honest, the only thing I really want in this summit is that RC car. I'm hoping it's going to be in the shop or something because it's looking pretty dang unique, and I'm wondering how they're going to do all that. But looking at this though, most of the summit seems to be loaned, so if anyone is wondering about cars, the only thing you'll have to have is probably something for these skills here. But overall, though, I would say this summit might be pretty simple. Besides that, though, we'll have the lovely Lamborghini, which we can now get a closer look at. This car is definitely super dope looking, and to be honest, I'm more excited to get this car in this summit than I have in an insanely long time. Besides all of that though, guys, looking at the summit this week, we will have a Slalom in Street Tier 1. You'll have to use a vehicle from Italy, so you could use the Fiat, a Ferrari if you want. I did use the Lancia Delta again, and this thing beat this with no issues, and by the way, I have a half score breaker, still got a max score, so yeah, that's honestly fairly simple. For the Escape though, I again used the Lancia Delta. Why? Honestly, I have no clue, but I wanted to try it. Got 3,033 yards, 153,000 points, and let me tell you, I was easily slower than the ghost of using that Fiat. So I would say if you guys have a car like the Lancia, this thing can easily do it. Besides that, though, the Hypercar race for this week, you'll have to use a car in Italy again. I did end up using the Ferrari F80 as I kind of wanted to. Got 2 minutes and 53 seconds on a pretty bad run, and my driving wasn't all that great. I did this without my contact lenses in, so I feel like 142,000 is honestly pretty decent. But I would say the Pagani's probably a great option, maybe the Maserati concept as well. But either way though, any of those cars, guys, you should be good to go on this event. It's luckily not insane like the previous weeks. It's basically just on a racetrack, so it's not too bad. With a lot of corners though, so watch out for that. But besides that though, the first event on the top left here is Street Tier 1, and it's loaned, which we probably all do know. But this race is in the Fiat 500, by the way, guys, and I'm going to say it. This race is probably going to annoy some people, alright? This car is insanely funky to drive. It's like super twitchy and really wonky to turn, and I'm honestly not the biggest fan of it. I would say the biggest thing is be careful when you're turning this thing. Kind of use like small implementations on that analog stick, like barely use it, and you might be okay. That way if you like slam the analog stick left or right, then you might just spin the car out and kind of fail, which ask me how I know. But either way though, the race isn't that terrible. The car is just insanely funky, and yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. The next event from there though, you'll then have to use the Maserati. I think it's the 4.9 SS from the other event. This one is also fairly easy, guys. There's some turns and all that. This car handles very nice. It's actually pretty good in stock form. I got it done in 230. Again, not the best driving, but I'm not here to be pro, man. I'm kind of just casually doing these, and I'm walking away from it. I would say with this car, though, it is a 5-speed, so it's a little bit easier to use than the Fiat. At least I found it was anyway. The next event from there, though, is once again a vehicle owned, and this one is indeed in the Maserati Alfieri. I think that's how you say that, but either way, though, this car is honestly fairly decent, guys. I do know it was buffed, and you could definitely feel that when you're driving this thing. Even in stock form, it seemed to perform pretty dang good, and overall, it was honestly a pretty fun car to drive. It dives into corners, it has good overall speed. I would say, despite this thing not being on the top of my list, it was honestly pretty decent. After that, though, we have the Fiat 500F race here. This one is a very easy race, guys. You will easily recognize this one. It is the Kiss Me Combi race. So with this event, I would say the biggest thing is keep your speed up around the corners, which I noticed with the Fiat is very easy for some reason. It kind of just dives into the corners and almost goes into it super easy. Maybe because the car is super tiny? I really don't know. But this event is luckily fairly simple. Besides that, the Maserati race here, guys, this one is also going to be on the easier side. This car, you can put your settings on it. I use some rinky-dink settings. The car still handled nicely around many of the corners and all that. The biggest thing is making sure you guys can keep the car, I would say, in like a higher type of gear because it kind of bounces off the rev limiter, similar to the Fiat. So I was trying to keep the car in 4th, maybe 5th sometimes, and hit the nitrous, getting the speed up a little bit easier. I noticed that helps the Maserati a bit. It made it a little bit faster. The final event here is that coastal race on the left part of the map, guys, and I would again say this car is honestly pretty dang good. I put some rinky-dink settings I'm liking that saying right now. And it honestly handles pretty good. I would say the Maserati after that buff is definitely a way more fun car to use. I enjoyed it a lot more than before. The thing kind of dives into corners easier. I like the way the car handles. The overall speed seems to be pretty good. The car is definitely better than I remember. And in this race, guys, there is a lot of corners where you have to jump into bigger straightaways, so make sure you keep that speed up. Something you definitely want to keep in mind. But overall, though, if you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I would say this summit is pretty dang simple for the most part, man. Nothing too insane here. Everyone will end up recognizing the events. The biggest thing I would say is trying to battle the tiny Fiat in the street loaned event. My goodness, it is so funky.